So it's the evening of August 29th, and I figured I'd give another update on BRICS because we've had a few days to digest the outcomes of the summit, and some other policies have come forward, specifically out of India. And it's very interesting because none of this is going the way that the big pro-BRICS crowd, the dollar doomer crowd, would think it would be going after such an announcement. I mean, how do you not grow after adding the powerhouse that is Ethiopia? So recently, India's position as business partners within BRICS and Western nations is giving them an unusual method to flex on other BRICS countries, to include China and Russia. And it is becoming increasingly clear to me, and this is a whole nother video, that I think BRICS is now becoming a Ponzi scheme for China and India to exploit any country that comes into their worldview or sphere of influence. Saudi Arabia is a whole other situation because they're trying to diversify away from oil, but I'll talk about that in a moment. So part of the reason the Russian ruble is so low is that Russia is holding foreign currencies it can't use, and it can't convert rubles. So the demand for rubles is stagnating globally, which drives its currency downward. When you have no demand for a currency, your currency drops. So an example of this pertains to India. Russia has accumulated Indian rupees because India bought oil from Russia worth 60 billion, and Russia in desperation took rupees as payment so they could buy much needed goods from India. It was Russia's way of trying to kickstart this ruble-rupee deal between the two countries to eliminate the dollar, which is what Russia has been trying to do. Well, it turns out Russia only needed about $6 to $7 billion in goods from India. So Russia is now stuck with like $50 billion in rupees in the bank. So when India bought or paid for the oil, they paid in rupees, $50 billion in rupees. Well, closer to $60 billion in rupees was given to Russia. Well, Russia turned around and used those rupees to buy goods from India. Well, Russia realized we don't need $50 billion in goods, so they have to bank the other $50 billion in rupees, and it just sits there. However, due to the rupee only being partially convertible, Russia can't exchange those rupees for other foreign currencies freely. Other countries usually take their rupees or whatever other currency and dump them for euros and dollars, because most countries will take euros and dollars because the vast majority of trade runs through Europe and the United States. So that's kind of where the problem for Russia begins, because sanctions means that Russia cannot do that. As a result, to utilize those rupees, Russia would ideally have to purchase more goods and services from India. India knows this, and now it's playing hardball with Russia. The rupee doesn't convert to the yuan, but to force Russia into using its rupees even more and pressure China, which they did earlier this year by having Indian banks and traders avoid using Chinese yuan to pay for Russian imports, there's a situation where India is now forcing Russia to buy Indian goods and not allowing Russia to buy Chinese goods. This is because of long-running political differences between India and China. And it's very fascinating because India is now starting to hold the cards here because it's not a part of sanctions. It has no problem with using Western currency because it has no problem with the United States, whereas China, as a face-saving attempt, can't be buying all these dollars because they're trying to divorce themselves from the influences of Western currency and U.S. dollar dominance. But India doesn't care about that. They're just doing what's best for India. Now they see that they're playing the problems Russia has and China has against it to their favor. They're using them to their favor. So when it comes to Russia, India won't accept the ruble and it won't accept the yuan, but it will accept the euro and dollar. But Russia has no access to those. India knows this and is now forcing Russia to invest in India or put their rupees in a bank, which will be wrecked by inflation. Russia knows this is going on, but it can't do anything. It just has to sit back and watch as the US and Europe look at Russia and go, "You created this mess yourself," and shrugs. Meanwhile, India laughs in what is actually 4D chess here. Meanwhile, we're going to pivot to Saudi Arabia here. There's this argument that adding Saudi Arabia is like this game changer for BRICS, that it's going to end the petrodollar. I made a video about how the petrodollar ended decades ago. We're now in the everything dollar phase, Watch that video. It's a whole thing. I'm not going to go over it again. But Saudi is still very much integrated in the U.S. system. The Saudi Crown Prince continues to have his own pet projects, and the Saudi Crown Prince is the leader of Saudi Arabia. He has these pet projects with the West, such as the LIV Golf PGA European Tour merger that was worth like $485 million. In fact, if you want to see what a country's priorities are, don't look at what it says. Look at what it invests in and look at its investment routes. Saudi holds $56 billion in U.S. stocks and $117 billion in U.S. Treasury bonds. This is a significant percentage of the Saudi's sovereign fund. And you want to hear something crazy about Saudi? It invests in China too. Companies like Alibaba, Pinduoduo, Kuopeng, etc. But that's not the crazy part. The crazy part is when Saudi invests in China, it does so via the New York Stock Exchange, which requires US dollars. Chinese companies listed on the New York Stock Exchange have their trading done in US dollars. So even when future BRICS member Saudi Arabia wants to buy stakes in a company located in current BRICS member China, the broker for the deal is in dollars, and it's via the largest stock exchange in the history of the world, the New York Stock Exchange, located in the great old US of A. In fact, on top of that, China's top bond holdings are number 1, U.S. Treasury bonds, number 2, Eurozone Treasuries, number 3, Japan, number 4, Australia, number 5, Canada, and number 6, the World Bank, which is the direct competitor to the BRICS New Development Bank. What about India? Top bond investments are the United States, the Euro, UK, and Japan. What about Brazil? The top bond investments for Brazil are the US, Eurozone, Germany, UK, and Japan. These BRICS countries don't even invest in each other. Where do they invest? In the G7. The G7, the direct competitor organization to BRICS. And just remember, this is an organization, the BRICS organization is an organization that has already struggled to agree on anything. In the last 17 years, since its formation, BRICS has done exactly 0 joint development ventures. Instead of doing anything other than watching China unilaterally advance its goals via BRICS, all these countries have only created a series of cooperatives, which is basically giving an official name to things that they were already doing. Furthermore, India refuses to join China's Belt and Road Initiative, which is a major marker for Chinese advancement. BRICS core members can't even figure out what their purpose is other than to be anti-dollar and anti-West, and they aren't even that, as I just talked about. And the dollar doomers think that adding 2 nearly bankrupt countries, 2 countries that are fighting proxy wars via competing terrorist entities, and 3 nations under various global sanctions is going to amount to anything but chaos and gridlock. They don't even like using each other's currencies, and they certainly don't trust each other past a group handshake photo op. It's a complete nonsense organization, period.